During my freshman year of college, all I wanted was to just become a professional sounding drummer that other pro musicians actually wanted to play with. But for some reason, my quest to go from amateur to pro eluded me. I just couldn't seem to find that intangible quality that all the great drummers possessed. I knew my dream of being a pro drummer wasn't going to happen at all if I couldn't sound as good as the heavy hitters, but I just had no idea how to get there. Then I met someone who cleared the confusion and literally removed the veil from my eyes. I was fortunate to be playing with a lot of great musicians at the time, and one of them introduced me to a fantastic drummer in town who was graciously willing to sit down with me and help me fix my playing. When he started talking to me, it was as if he knew exactly what was wrong with my playing, having never even heard me play before. His words were addressing all the fundamental issues going on, literally pinpointing every problem spot on. Here's what he told me. The fills are what separate the men from the boys. The most powerful asset you have is your ear. Strive to get great sounds out of your drums and cymbals every time you hit them. So believe it or not, once I implemented these three mindsets, my playing rapidly changed for the better. And in case this sounds a little vague to you right now, don't worry, because it's time to break it down a little more. I'll show you exactly what we talked about as we continue this conversation and what I practiced as a result, which you can practice too. You can do this. The fills are what separate the men from the boys. So what he meant by that was that your fills need to be thoughtful and intentional. In other words, ask why. For every part, every fill, every groove that you ever play, every note you play on the drums, ask why first. A really good why for playing a particular part might be, well, that's what the melody's doing. I'm emphasizing the melody and supporting what the vocalist is singing, or what I'm playing fits nicely with that guitar riff, or there's something that the bass is doing there, and so I'm going to not play right there, but then come in right after he finishes his riff. And so those are all really great musical reasons to be playing what you're playing, and it all comes down to listening. We'll talk a little bit more about listening in a second. But what this also means is that we don't necessarily need more notes. A lot of times we actually don't want more notes. We want more space in fills, or we want to more creatively place the notes in our fills so that we can create a unique fill without adding more notes. I'm going to show you an example of this at the kit. I'm going to play some different fills for you, and so you'll hear how a lot of these fills have a lot of space. They're not just chops moving around the kit. There's a good bit of space, and sometimes I start them at unique spots, and I throw in random syncopation where it's not a lot of notes, it's just placed in interesting places so that the fill feels very unique and creative. Now, just because a fill is simple doesn't mean that it's easy to play. When I was in high school, I had my chops together and I could play fast fills all day. And I was comfortable playing fast fills around the kit. That was my comfort zone. But what wasn't my comfort zone was playing slow, basic rock fills, like slow singles around the kit. That's something I had to practice later. I had to work on staying relaxed and being okay with space, because sometimes it's really hard to allow there to be space. So you just have to practice that. Practice making a fill a measure of nothing. Just playing a flam and doing nothing, or something really big and slow that requires you to be relaxed. The most powerful asset you have is your ear. So what exactly does that mean? Well, in the context of this story, what it meant was tell a story with your drum parts and your dynamics. So let the song be a story, because a great song is a story. And so how are you supporting that story and telling that story with your drum parts? You're listening to the music and you're following the dynamics. You're paying attention to how loud you're playing versus the energy of the song. So you're making sure you're playing appropriately for what the song is feeling at the moment. But you're also following the melody. So it goes back to what we mentioned a minute ago, how a lot of great drum parts stem from the melody. So you're listening to that, you're hearing the melody, and you're letting your fills fit with that and the groove fit with that. And so you're just listening, you're taking in all these parts going on around you, and you're making sure that what you play fits those parts, whether you're emphasizing them or offsetting them. The best way to learn and understand this concept, because it does feel a little bit abstract, just listen to music. I mean, go and listen to music. And there are 3 songs in particular, just 3 that really came to mind for me that illustrate drum parts supporting the story of the song and really progressing a song. The first one is an epic song, Everlong by the Foo Fighters. I think it's the most epic song of the 90s. Came out in 1997. I'll also never forget when they played it live on David Letterman's farewell show. It was so epic, and they just jammed on it, and it was really cool. But it's one of those songs where Dave Grohl's drum parts very much support where the song is going, because it builds and it builds, and there's all this epicness. And there are those riffs basically going into the choruses where the drums very much support what's going on there, and they're an integral part of that, and they're fitting with what the guitar player is playing. And so all those parts are working together. This is just a great example of a great, well thought out rock song with great parts that all have a why behind each one of them. When You Were Young by The Killers. So this was kind of the next decade's epic rock song. In my opinion, I think it's one of the most epic rock songs of the 2000s. Same story, where the drum parts are simple and there's some space in the verses where there needs to be space, but it just builds up into this epicness later in the song. And so it tells the story of the song. It follows these dynamics and really takes the listener somewhere. Lots of why behind that drum part. And lastly, this one's a little bit different direction, pop rock, country. Red by Taylor Swift. So this song's a really good example of this because it's so straightforward, and it's just basically a Nashville kind of pop song from a few years ago. When you listen to this, you can very clearly hear all of the parts and how they're all working together and how the drum parts build into each part of the song. Like you hear this fill going into the first chorus, this fill going into the next chorus, and then there's a breakdown that very much fits with the melody. And so everything we're talking about right now, you can hear that so clearly in Red. So go check out that song if you're not familiar with it. Strive to get great sounds out of your drums and cymbals every time you hit them. That was the 3rd thing that he told me. And basically what that means is hit every drum and cymbal with intention and with the goal of getting the best possible sound out of them. So what does that mean? That means we're striking each drum precisely. So we're hitting the toms in the middle or slightly off center. We're making sure to not be sloppy. Like if we're playing a fill, we're not hitting the toms out near the rim when we need a strong, punchy, consistent sound. That also means that our backbeats are consistent. If we're playing loudly, that means our backbeats are loud. Or if we're playing more quietly, that means that our backbeats are quiet, but they're consistent. They're the same volume every time so that our listener can be at ease. This also means mixing the kit properly, making sure that the drums can be heard clearly above the cymbals and that the cymbals aren't too loud. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and if it helped you out, be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, and also grab my free e-guide before you go. My gift to you, it's going to help you out a bunch, so go check that out. Thanks for watching. Stay non-glamorous.